This is a tutorial for a beginner crossbody bag. This crossbody bag is made out of denim, has webbing straps, a colorful zipper, contrasting decorative stitching, and the inside edges are finished with zigzags to keep the bag from fraying. For this project, you will need your denim, you will need a colorful zipper, you will need 1.5 yards of webbing, you'll need a marking pencil, you'll need some sort of ruler, you will need scissors, you will need white thread, and you will need your pins. You will also be using the sewing machine. Okay, the first step for the crossbody bag is measuring and cutting out your fabric. So it should be 18 inches by 8 inches. As you can see, I've already cut mine. It is 18 inches by 8 inches. So that is the first step for the crossbody bag. The second step for the crossbody bag is choosing your colorful zipper. You'll need to make sure that it's a 9-inch zipper. We don't want any longer than that because we will have to cut off a little bit of even this 9-inch zipper. So we need a 9-inch zipper, and you can choose the color from the colors that are available. Okay, step 3 is marking where you're going to do your decorative stitching. I've already done this. I did mine 2 inches apart. Since it's 8 inches, this is 2 inches, this is 2 inches, this is 2 inches, and this is 2 inches. So I marked 2 inches, 2 inches, 2 inches on each side, and then connected the lines with the ruler. So you'll use your marking pencil to mark the lines where you want to put your decorative stitching. They don't have to go this way. They could go this way. They could be diagonal. You just have to put your lines down before you sew because decorative stitching can be hard to keep straight. So choose where you want your decorative stitching and mark where you're going to put it. Choose your decorative stitch from this list of decorative stitches. You can put in the number here and make sure that it shows up as the correct one. If you want to look through the other ones, you can look through them and choose from there. Make sure that you thread your machine with white thread and a white bobbin. Before you stitch your decorative stitching on your real fabric, you might want to take a piece of fabric that is scrap from what you had to cut off to make your fabric the right size and test out what the decorative stitch looks like and if the settings are correct to make it look good. So let's see. Okay, so that is looking good. So I can go on and move ahead to my real fabric. Once you have your machine threaded and your stitch chosen, you can start stitching on your line. You don't really want to back stitch with a decorative stitch, so make sure you start as far close to the end as you can and then just start going, following your line. You'll want to make sure you match up the red line on the sewing machine foot to the line that you've drawn on your fabric. And you'll do that on all 3 of, or however many lines you have for your stitching. You'll notice that I'm not touching it right now. I'm just making sure that it keeps straight. The machine will move it where it needs to make the decorative stitch. You can go faster or slower, but start out slow so that that you keep control of the machine. If you want, you can use multiple different decorative stitches. I decided to do leaves and little flowers, and then I'm going to do another line of the same leaves. So you can choose whatever combination or just even a single type of decorative stitch that you want. Okay, we're almost done. Okay, I'm done with my decorative stitching. As you can see, the lines are all nice and straight for the most part because we drew the straight lines to follow. So there are some spots where the fabric moved because the machine moved, but for the most part they're very straight because we followed those straight lines that we made. Okay, now we are going to mark our fold lines. We are going to mark the top fold line at 1.5 inches down from the top. And we're going to mark the bottom one from 10 inches down from the fold, which is 8.5 inches from the first mark. Okay, so I've now marked on both sides 1.5 inches from this edge and another 8.5 inches from there to there, which is 10 inches from the top. So a line at 10 inches and a line at 1.5 inches on each side. And these marks will come out with water after you're done sewing the bag. And now what I've gone and done is I've connected those top 2 lines so that we can use those to help place our webbing. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to take our webbing. We should have 1.5 yard piece. And we're going to place the webbing where we want the webbing to go. Okay, so the webbing, we're going to put it 1 inch. The end of it right here should be 1 inch below this line and 3/4 of an inch below this line. Okay, so it is, the edge of it is 3/4 of an inch from the side, and we've got 1 inch of the webbing below that fold line. So that is how we want it on each side. So this side will be 3/4 of an inch from this side, and it will be 1 inch down from that fold line. Okay, so I've pinned the other side. This is 3/4 of an inch, and this is 1 inch down. And something else you want to make sure of is that your ends are not twisted. So mine looks a little twisted right now, but it's not. So it should go like that so that it is not twisted. You don't want your strap twisted because we're about to sew it on. Okay, so we are going to sew this on in a square shape. So we don't want to stitch any higher than that fold line because then we won't be able to fold the fabric there. So we're going to stitch a little bit away from there, just down, and we're going to make a box on this webbing, and then we're going to make an X in the box to make it nice and strong so it stays on there, and I'll show you that in a second. Make sure when you're turning corners, you are ending with the needle down. If you end with the needle up, you can push the needle down button, and then you're going to lift up the foot and pivot and put the foot back down and keep stitching, and that is how you turn the corners properly. So I've sewed 1 line. I'm going to sew more. Okay, and I end with the needle down, and I bring the presser foot up, and I turn. This is the rest of the bag. And we keep the thread tails out of the way, and I'm going to put it back down and stitch. And one more time. Okay, now we're going to make an X in the center. So we're going to pivot again, but we're not going straight, we're going diagonal through the box. So I've got it lined up with the diagonal where I want to go. I'm going to sew that diagonally. Okay. Then I'm going to lift it up. I'm going to have to sew straight along one of the sides of the box again, which will help strengthen it as well. So I'm going to sew straight until I get to that corner. I'm going to pivot all the way around to go the other way to make an X in the box. Okay, now we have finished our box with an X in it. What we want to do is stitch over all of those lines again to make it nice and strong. You can see the X in the box there. We're going to go over it all again to make it sure it's as strong as it can be so that our straps don't come off. Make sure you keep your extra straps out of the way so you don't sew over them. and try to make sure you're going over the same exact place. It's a little hard, I only have one hand right now, so that's why some of mine are a little more messy. But you will try to keep all your stitching right on top of each other so it only looks like one line of stitching, but it's actually two for strength. I'm done now, so I'm going to push the needle up button again so that my needle comes up, and I'm going to take it out and I'm going to cut my thread tails. And so that is kind of what it should look like. You should have a box with an X in the middle, and the back should look the same. It should be nice and strong, and this will help your strap stay on. So now I'm going to repeat that on the other strap to make sure our straps are sewn on really well. Okay, so here is the second side. Make sure that you trim your thread so it's not something you have to do all at the end. So we'll trim our thread here and on our decorative stitching. Something to keep in mind as you sew is to trim your thread as you go, and then you don't have to do it at the end. Okay, our next step is pinning on the zipper. So what we're going to do first is we're going to move our straps out of the way, and we're going to pin those back. Okay, I've pinned the straps backwards so that they are out of the way so we can pin the zipper on here. So we're going to pin one side of the zipper on here, and we're going to make sure that the side with the zipper teeth on it is facing down. So we're going to line it up like this. We're going to line up that edge like that, and we're going to pin it along this edge right here. Okay, so we've pinned along this edge, and now we're going to take it over to the sewing machine. Okay, we're back to our sewing machine. Our machine is still on a straight stitch, and we've got our regular foot on the machine. There is a zipper foot, but I'm going to show you how to use the regular foot to sew on a zipper. So what we're going to do is we're going to put our fabric and zipper under the machine and put it down, and we are going to be sewing as close to the zipper teeth as we can. And this is our normal all-purpose presser foot. You can use a zipper foot if you have one, but I'm going to show you how to use the regular foot to get the zipper on. It's not hard, it's just something you have to be a little more careful with. So for that, we're going to need to change the needle position. This button right here is for needle position. If you press this way, you'll see the little picture on the screen, it's moving up. And if you look at the needle, it is moving to the right. If you go the other way, if you use the subtraction sign, it goes the other way, and you'll see that the needle moves as you do that. And so what we are going to do is we are going to move that needle as close as we can to those zipper teeth. We want it to be about here is where we want to stitch. We don't want to stitch too close because we will stitch through the zipper teeth that are on the other side. But we want to get close to them so we don't see too much of the zipper. So I have mine at, let's see, and you can also put your needle down a little bit to see where it's going to hit. So I think that might be a little too close still, so I'm gonna do one more. I think that's gonna be perfect. So mine is at -1.5, and I have my presser foot lined up on the other side with the edge of my fabric and zipper. So I'm going to sew with a needle position of -1.5. I'm going to sew very carefully because we don't want to hit the zipper on the other side. Your zipper pull should be over here, out of the way. I'm going to remove my pins so I don't sew over them. and I'm going to make sure I backstitch at the beginning and end. I'm going to make sure my needle is down before I take out pins so that I don't accidentally move the fabric away from where it's supposed to be. Be very careful at the end because there is a metal zipper stop on the zipper, and if you hit that, you will break your needle. But make sure you backstitch at the end. Okay, now we're going to flip it a little bit to make sure that we haven't gotten too close. And what we're going to do is we are going to zip the zipper to make sure that we still have enough room to do that. We also need to trim our threads so they don't get caught in the zipper. But it looks like our zipper is working great, and we've got just enough room for it to still zip. Okay, now we need to repeat this on the other side. We need to take this side of the zipper and sew it to this end of the bag. So we're going to pin that on now. Okay. We're going to make sure that our straps still stay out of the way, but we're going to fold this end up, and we are going to pin this edge here. Something you need to make sure is, see, I've just pulled that there, and if I pinned that and sewed that there, these would not be even. We need to make sure that the denim is even with the other side so that it stays a rectangle. Okay, so what I'm doing is I'm just matching up the edges of the zipper tape and the denim, and I'm pinning them together. So that they match. I'm going to do that all along the length of the zipper and the fabric. This part's a little messed up, so I'm going to go back and repin that. They match. Some of it might be a little jaggedy from the cutting, but we want it pinned all the way along so that we can sew it. Okay, we are keeping our settings the same as for the first side of the zipper, and we're going to sew down all the way, making sure to backstitch at the front and back, and make sure to watch out for the metal zipper stop because it goes out a little further than the zipper teeth, and you don't want to hit it or you will break your needle. You want to go nice and slow when you're sewing on a zipper, especially when you're not using a zipper foot. If anything moves or gets in the way of the needle, you'll mess up or break your needle. Make sure you're removing your pins as you go. You don't want to sew over your pins because you can also break your needle that way. Okay, we're at the end, so I'm going to back stitch. Our threads, and we've got our zipper sewn on. We're going to turn it to the other side and make sure our zipper works. Okay, so now we've got it turned to the other side, and we're going to zip and unzip our zipper to make sure that it works, that we haven't sewn too close. It's really hard with one hand to do, but it works. So we haven't sewn too close. So the next step is we're going to top stitch, which means we are going to fold this over. We're going to fold all the seam allowance and the zipper tape away from the zipper, and we are going to stitch on the outside to keep those away from the zipper. Make sure before you top stitch you reset your stitches so that the needle is in the center again, because otherwise you will line it up to part of the foot that you think should be the middle and it'll sew somewhere else. So make sure you line it up and to where you want it, and make sure you're only sewing through one layer. So move the other parts out of the way, and we're going to move all of the seam allowance for one side over. So all the seam allowance is under on this side. It is not on the zipper side. We need to stitch down that seam allowance so it stays there. So you can pin this. I'm just holding it there, and make sure every once in a while that you only have the layers you're trying to sew through. So it should look like this on the bottom, spreading out the zipper, and make sure that you don't have any other fabric than what you're trying to sew through under there, because otherwise you'll stitch parts of your bag together that aren't supposed to be together. Okay, and you're going to have to keep making sure that the fabric is where you want it, and that there's no extra fabric where you don't want it. Because again, we don't want to sew the bag together in a way that it's not supposed to be and sew it closed or something. It becomes a bit more difficult at the end because you're trying to keep all of that fabric away from where you don't want it. And it's all in a tube now. Make sure you keep the straps out of the way too. We're going to make sure that the zipper pull is also out of the way so we don't hit that. Stitch. Okay, we're going to cut our thread tails, and we're going to do that on the other side of the zipper. It can be a bit difficult to get it out from underneath the presser foot because of how the fabric is all bunched up now. We need to get it out, cut the thread tails. So now we've done one line of top stitching. So I'll show you what it looks like from the inside. So from the inside, you can see that that is holding all that seam allowance and zipper tape away from where we don't want it. This is the side we haven't sewn yet, and this side is laying flat really nicely so that the zipper doesn't have all that fabric get in the way. Okay, you can see now I've stitched both sides, and the seam allowances lay very nicely flatly down. And you can see the top stitching from both of the sides. And now it's going to be super easy to open the zipper. Okay, you can also see here that because I measured out where my lines were for my decorative stitching, that they pretty much match nicely. So that's why you want to measure where your decorative stitching goes. Okay, so we've got our top stitching done. The next part is we're going to do the side seams. So first we're going to make sure our zipper is closed. We're going to close our zipper. and we are going to turn this inside out. Okay, our bag is turned inside out. Now we are going to fold it on the upper fold line that we marked earlier. We're going to make sure it folds on that line. We're going to try to keep the straps out of the way, and we're going to fold it on that line and pin it down the side. Okay, so we've pinned one of the sides together. Now we're going to stuff the rest of the strap in here and pin this side closed, making sure we're folding on the fold line. So we have both of the sides pinned shut, and we have the zipper closed. Now what we're going to do is we're going to make sure that we're going to unzip the zipper to about here, so that the zipper pull is inside the area of the bag that's going to be used. So I've unzipped the zipper partially so that the zipper is out of the way, and so that we don't sew it when the zipper is over here. If we sewed it without unzipping the zipper first, then the zipper pull, this part of the zipper that you pull to unzip it, would be stuck over here, and we would have to undo our stitching here to get it back over here. So we need to now do exactly that. We're going to sew with a 1/2 inch seam allowance on both of the sides. When you're sewing over the zipper, make sure you're very slow and careful. You don't want to break a needle on the zipper teeth. Okay, we're going to make sure to back stitch at the beginning. We're going to be very careful, especially on this end. This is the metal zipper stop. We're going to be careful that we don't sew over that, because that will break our needle. And we're going to back stitch over the zipper. We're going to back stitch at the end. And we're going to do a 1/2 inch seam allowance. Make sure you take out your pins as you go. You don't want to sew over pins if you can help it. Okay, we're coming to the zipper stop, so we're going to be very careful to make sure to go around that. And if you need to, use the hand wheel on the side to make sure you're going slowly and so you don't run into it. Okay, see, I've just hit it, but I haven't gone through, so I can shift the fabric so that I don't try to go through that. So I've moved my fabric, and now I should be able to go through this area. Okay, so now I need to make sure that I've aligned the rest of the seam allowance. I'm going to carefully backstitch where I just came from. Still making sure not to hit that metal zipper stop. Also, I can feel that my strap in here is moving towards where I'm sewing. So I'm going to take a second to make sure it is out of the way of my sewing, so I don't sew over the strap. Sewing over the strap right now would be bad. It would be stuck in a place it's not supposed to be. So now we've got one of our sides sewn. And you can see how close we are to that zipper stop. So that's why we use the hand wheel, to make sure we don't hit that. Because if we hit that, we will break the needle. So now I'm going to sew the other side, and on this side especially, I'm going to make sure to zigzag over this area with the zipper. Again, as you go, make sure that none of the strap is where you're trying to sew. Okay, now we're going to slow down. And we are going to go carefully and slowly over this zipper part. These zipper teeth are plastic, so they're less likely to break your needle, but you should still go slowly. I'm going to use the hand wheel. Okay, now I'm going to put on the back stitch, so I'm back stitching with the hand wheel. Again. Okay, and I think that'll be enough. So I'm going to finish up the rest of the seam. This next part is very important. For this step, you need to check with the teacher. We are about to trim off the excess zipper, but before you do that, check with your teacher so they can make sure your zipper is in a place where you won't cut off the important parts of the zipper. So take your project to the teacher and ask them to check that your zipper will be okay when you trim it. So I've checked with the teacher, and the teacher has said it is okay to trim my zipper now. What I'm going to do is I'm going to cut the zipper so it is even with the seam allowance of the denim. I'm going to do that on both sides. This side only hangs over a little bit. This side hangs over quite a bit, and the zipper teeth will be a bit hard to cut through, so go slowly and carefully. Now that we have trimmed our zipper, what we're going to do is we're going to zigzag over these seams. This is called overcasting. And we're doing that to make the seams stronger, but mostly to stop the fraying. You'll see that this denim is starting to come apart at the edges. It's unweaving itself. That is called fraying. So we're going to do a zigzag stitch over the edge, and that will stop all this thread from coming out of the fabric. So first we need to switch the machine to a zigzag stitch, and on this machine a zigzag is number 4. Okay, so we are going to put our fabric under the machine. And we are going to zigzag off of the edge. So you're at the end of your stitch. So one of the sides of the zigzag should be in the fabric and one should be near the edge of the fabric or just barely going over the edge of the fabric. And this will wrap the seam in thread that will help it not fray. You might have to go over the zipper part slowly, again, because there are those zipper teeth. These ones are plastic, so they probably won't break your needle, but your machine might not like it if you go over them too quickly. Zigzag at the end here, or sorry, back stitch. So you can see we've zigzagged along the edge, and that will help keep the fabric from keeping on doing this fraying. And we're going to trim off this extra thread that has already come off so it doesn't come off anymore. And we're going to repeat that with the other side. We're going to zigzag it, then trim off the threads. Now that we've finished the edges of that, the last step is to open up the bag, and we are going to turn it right side out and poke out the corners so it's nice and sharp. You have to unzip the zipper, quite difficult to do with one hand. Okay, and then we're going to turn this all right side out. Be careful, we do still have pins holding some of the straps back. So I've got it mostly turned out. So I'm going to turn it. We're going to turn those corners. We're going to take the pins that are holding the straps back out. I think the other one already came out. So we've got our straps. And we're going to pull out the excess over here. Okay, I have some extra threads poking out. I will trim those in a minute. But first we are going to poke out the corners by using a closed pen or pencil. You can also use the end of your scissors, but they're a bit sharp, so I'm going to use this pencil. Okay, so I've just got the pencil on the inside, and I'm going to use it to gently poke that corner till the corner looks nice from the outside. Okay, there we go. We've got the corner all turned. I'm also going to make sure the sides look nice by running the pencil over there. And we've got this corner. Poke that corner a bit. I'm going to move to the other side. Poke out this corner. And we've got our last corner. out of the way. So now we've got all of our corners poked out. So I'm going to trim these threads that are poking out, and then we are done. So this is our finished bag. It has straps that are attached very securely with our box and an X. We've got decorative stitches that decorate it, and they are in contrasting thread. We've got a zipper that opens and closes very easily because we've top stitched all the seam allowances back. Those top stitching lines look really nice too. And then on the inside, we've got our seams that are finished with a zigzag so that they don't unravel or fray. So that is the end of the crossbody bag tutorial. And that is your crossbody bag that you have sewn all by yourself. So thank you for watching.